I really love Hannah Glass's cookbook because it's got so many things in it. She's got some dishes that are very, very expensive, probably take days to create properly, and then other things that are very, very simple. She even has some particular segments of the book that are for like sea captains or other situations. So it's a very diverse book. This particular recipe is very simple, and it could go in a cookbook of poor people food because it's so simple, so inexpensive, and easy to do. Let's go over our ingredients. I'm gonna go ahead and chop this recipe in half because I don't need a whole big giant pot of barley soup. So what we've got here, pearled barley. That's the main component of this. We need about 4 ounces of pearled barley. It also calls for breadcrumbs, but she doesn't say exactly how many breadcrumbs, so I probably got about a half a cup of breadcrumbs here. She also calls for mace. Now, if you're gonna making a very, very inexpensive version, you can leave the mace out, but we've got a little bit of mace here, and she actually says a blade of mace. Now, this is already ground up. And a little bit of lemon peel. Again, this is one of those ingredients that if you needed to, you could leave it out or add something that was maybe a little less expensive, but I've got some lemon peel here that I've chopped up finely, so you could use some lemon zest, whatever you have. We also need some water for this particular recipe. She calls for a gallon, so we're gonna start with a half a gallon of water. And at the very end, we'll bring in a little bit of white wine. Now we could get this over the fire and then add in our barley. I don't think it's gonna matter. She doesn't really call for, when the barley goes in. So we're gonna put the barley in right now. We'll get this over the fire. We can add in, as soon as it really starts to boil, we'll add in our breadcrumbs. I think I'm gonna wait for the mace and the lemon till it's almost done, really. I don't wanna overcook that part of it. Well, this is boiling up well. I'm gonna go ahead and toss in my breadcrumbs. I'm gonna go ahead and toss in a little bit of the mace and some lemon peel here. Stir this up. The thing we gotta remember with the barley here is it's gotta cook a long time before it gets soft. And the recipe reflects that by saying, she says that she starts out with a gallon of water and she says boil it till it's reduced to half. That's a lot of boiling. That's a lot of getting rid of moisture there, but it needs that much time to get the barley nice and soft. Now, we don't have to reduce it to half. What we really need to do is check occasionally to see if the barley is softened up. So I'm gonna go ahead and just let this boil for a little while. We'll come back and check on it. At the end of this recipe, she calls for adding in a half a cup of white wine and sweetening to your taste. Well, here is our barley soup, and well, let's find out exactly what it tastes like. I added that wine in, and there's one little notation that says, of course, sweeten to taste. Now, what does that mean? I'm used to barley soup being a savory dish, and there's like a Scotch broth recipe in the cookbook that has lots of meats and obviously is a savory dish, but I guess this one might not be. So it's definitely got, the wine almost takes over as sort of the main flavor in here. There's still the flavors of like the mace, depending on how much you put in, and say lemon, depending again on how much you put in. I guess she's actually implying that this should be a sweet dish. So let's add a little bit of sugar to this to see where it goes with the flavor, because as it comes, it's a little bland, and I think the wine kind of takes over, and it needs something else. Either you go one way or the other, right? So let's try going with sugar. It definitely starts to become almost like a dessert soup. I don't know. Now, you may remember the barley gruel episode that we did, and this is probably kind of close to the barley gruel. I think it's actually turning out really good, and I really enjoy the texture of barley. This barley has cooked a long time, so it's really, really soft. Depending on what you like for your textures of your barley, you might not want to cook it as long, but it's turned out really good, especially with a little bit of sugar.